Good afternoon, Your Majesty, ambassadors, distinguished guests, members of the university community, and the public. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you to Princeton, to today's special event. My name is Nolan McCarty, and I'm the acting dean of Princeton's Woodrow Wilson School, which is hosting today's speech by King Abdullah II of Jordan. Before I introduce Princeton University President Shirley Tillman, who will then introduce His Majesty, I would like to very briefly say how pleased we are that King Abdullah will be delivering this important message at the invitation of the Wilson School. We would like to believe that the Wilson School is a fitting host for King Abdullah's remarks on the current challenges facing the Middle East. As many of you are aware, the school's ongoing teaching and research takes a rigorous and interdisciplinary approach to some of the most serious issues in public and international affairs. Policy issues that challenge all of us in the academy, in government, at home, and abroad. From diplomacy and national security policy, from pressing domestic social problems to economic and political development throughout the world, from conflict resolution and negotiation to global health, science, and technology policy. The school, its programs, faculty, and staff conduct research and transmit its findings to increase human knowledge in the service of solutions to the world's most pressing and urgent problems. It is now my pleasure to introduce President Tillman. A native of Canada, she received her bachelor's with honors in chemistry from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and her PhD in biochemistry from Temple University. President Tillman conducted her postdoctoral studies at the National Institutes of Health, participating in cloning the first mammalian gene. A member of the National Research Council's committee that set the blueprint for the United States effort in the Human Genome Project, she was also one of the founding members of the National Advisory Council of the Human Genome Project for the National Institutes of Health. She was appointed to the faculty of Princeton's Department of Molecular Biology in 1986 and served as the founding director of Princeton's multidisciplinary Louis Sigler Institute for Integrative Genomics. She assumed office as president of Princeton University in July 2001. She is a member of the American Philosophical Society, the National Academy of Sciences, the Institute of Medicine, and the Royal Society of London. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us today. Please help me welcome President Shirley Tillman.
Your Majesty, Dean McCarty, distinguished visitors, fellow Princetonians, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Princeton University and the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs, I would like to welcome you to our campus and to this assembly. To have King Abdullah II of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan with us today is a great honor, not only because of the royal family and kingdom that he represents, but also because he stands in the forefront of those who seek a peaceful resolution to the Arab-Israeli conflict that has divided the Middle East for 6 decades. Like his father, King Hussein, before him, he has been a voice of moderation in a region of the world where extremists often claim the headlines. Since ascending to the throne in 1999, he has championed interreligious and intercultural understanding and has pressed our nation to use the full extent of its influence to create conditions in which the people of Israel and the people of Palestine can live in harmony. As he told a joint session of Congress last year, no Palestinian father should be helpless to feed his family and build a future for his sons and daughters. No Israeli mother should fear when her child boards a bus. Not one more generation should grow up thinking that violence and conflict are the norm. In Jordan, King Abdullah is dedicated to creating a pluralistic and equitable society that can serve as a model for others, as well as a constructive partner in the search for regional peace and prosperity. Whether he is modernizing his kingdom's educational system, enhancing the status of women, or facilitating international trade, King Abdullah is seeking to build, and here again I use his own words, a strong, prosperous, and invincible Jordan, where our children and grandchildren enjoy freedom, security, and a decent life. Your Majesty, we wish you well in this challenging task, and we thank you for making Princeton a stopping place on your journey from New York to Washington. I know I speak for everyone in this auditorium when I say that we are looking forward to learning your thoughts on Jordanian-American relations and the elusive but critical path to an Israeli-Palestinian peace. After your remarks, I would ask Professor McCarty to invite our students to ask a few questions, and I emphasize a few, since even kings cannot stop time, much though we would like to keep you here all afternoon. And so without further delay, I would invite Your Majesty to come to the podium and all of you to give our royal visitor the warmest of Princeton welcomes.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. 57 countries are not at peace with Israel today. 57 countries out of 193 countries in this world. That's 57 countries with a total population greater than Europe and the United States combined. 57 countries representing 1/3 of the members of the United Nations. 57 countries for whose citizens the conflict in Palestine is the issue of their time. We must therefore ask the important question: what are the implications for global stability if this continues? Today I assert that this must not continue, and 2008 is a critical year. Yes, at long last, this year, right now, we are in the best possible position to resolve 60 years of conflict between Israel and Palestine. The Arab and Muslim states have committed to an unprecedented peace initiative. We have a chance to answer this third of the world who are not at peace with Israel and who demand freedom and dignity for the Palestinian people. But time is running out, and we need the United States of America completely involved to influence the course of discussions, monitor progress, and help bridge the gaps to ensure a final agreement by the end of 2008. And it is difficult to exaggerate how great the stakes are for Americans, for Arabs, for Israelis, and indeed for the world. But I'm not here today to speak only of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I'm here to speak to you, the scholars of the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs, of the critical importance of a long-term strategic American involvement in the development of the Middle East. And I'm here to explain that such a commitment is an opportunity to transform the strategic landscape of the Middle East for the years to come. And I'm here to speak of what must, and I repeat, must happen if our world is to be safe. Now, I know that optimism does not come easily in academia, but I do know about the visionary thinking that is the scholar's gift. So today I ask you to employ visionary thinking, to consider a short and long-term strategy that will ensure a viable, stable, prosperous Middle East region and a safe and secure world for all. America's involvement is a critical success factor of such a strategy. We need a strong authority that can act and act swiftly. We need to act now, for time is running out. The continuing confinement of the Palestinians in Gaza every day creates a greater radicalism among Palestinians, and it invites other actors within the region to operate on their behalf. The long period of conflict has allowed new ambitions, influences, and capabilities to appear. They are echoed in Iraq's armed sectarian division, in the attacks on Lebanese sovereignty, and in the power projection by state and non-state actors. There are many other serious threats. Security opportunities for youth, economic development, resource scarcity, chronic conflicts, institutional challenges, nuclear weapons proliferation are just some examples of the major challenges we face. You are a prime example of some of the gifted, ambitious youth of America. And we're aware very acutely of the urgent needs of our own youth, who make up 70% of my people's region. It is the largest youth cohort in our history. And like American youth, internet communications has given them an unprecedented view of the world. In their own region, they see evidence in extremist messages of hatred and isolation. They see the lack of opportunities and an uncertain future. But they also see the prosperity and freedom that countries and regions in peace can offer. And we must meet the expectations of this younger generation. In my region, we expect to need 200 million new jobs by 2020. Creating these opportunities will require investment and partnership to develop new infrastructure, meet energy and water needs, improve public services and education. So a strong, cooperative Arab-American strategic partnership must be created. But today, my friends, we must contemplate. And I pose these questions for your consideration. Will my region plunge into more chaos and violence where extremism rules? Or will it be a peaceful, developing region? Will it be a region focused on conflicting radical ideologies, fueled by the manipulation of sectarian division? Or will it be a region reaping the benefits of globalization and strong global partnerships? Will it be a region that rejects Western alliances, perhaps violently, because they have become far too difficult to achieve? Or will it be a region that is a global partner in progress and prosperity with the West? The choice is ours. But we must act, and time is running out. The dangerous combination of new technology, terrorism, and the drastic consequences of economic underdevelopment all continue to add to a potentially catastrophic situation on the ground. We must act this year if we are to achieve the first important advancements towards a strong Middle East region. A year ago, before the U.S. Congress, I urged an all-out American commitment to lead the way forward. I said then what I repeat today, that the wellspring of global division, the source of resentment and frustration within the region and far beyond, is the denial of justice and peace in Palestine. The beginning of a long-term strategic partnership between the Arab world and the United States must begin with the resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. America is the only world power capable of ensuring that the parties stay on track and on time in their current negotiations. And America is uniquely placed to build international support through the peacemaking process. Resolution of this conflict will be critical if we are to confront the other serious regional challenges. But time is running out. This year is an unprecedented opportunity to reach a comprehensive settlement between Israel and all its neighbors. Now, in Israel, there are those who oppose any movement towards resolution. There are politicians who do not want peace with Palestinians and who reject a two-state solution. I disagree. Israel's security cannot depend indefinitely on occupation, walls, and the Israeli military. Real security for Israel will occur when it is a neighbor amongst neighbors, an economy amongst economies, and a people among people, working together towards the achievement of common goals and bright futures. In America, there are those who oppose any further involvement. There are those who say it is not America's business. And I must disagree. You will all know that historically success in the Middle East peacemaking was achieved when the United States stepped in and drove the negotiations. Now, a victory by the enemies of peace, freedom, stability, and moderation just cannot be an option. If we miss today's opportunities, peace will be set back perhaps for decades. Extremists will continue to act. The forces of moderation and positive change will weaken. Global divisions will not only endure, but also possibly deepen. And questioning of the West's effectiveness and commitment may grow. All of these will have consequences not only for my region, but also for the world. My friends, division and hatred have eroded understanding and agreement. They have played into the hands of the enemies of humanity, those who attacked the World Trade Center, those who would divide multicultural Europe, those who right now seek to tear my region apart. If we fail to take the necessary steps to resolve the core problem of the region, it will become significantly harder for the countries of the Middle East to work in partnership with America in the future. And I fear radical ideologies will determine the political and social agendas in many of our countries. The region will move further away from our vision of moderation, prosperity, peace. It will move further away from the common principles of mutual respect and partnership on which we want to base our relations with the United States and the West. Every day, another child in my region grows up with frustration and hatred in his or her eyes. Every day, another child grows up with aggression because that is all they've known. Every day, young people lose hope because they cannot get jobs and they cannot see opportunities. Princeton scholars speaking here today, and I'm especially aware of the role of scholars and students in making progress happen. Where others see unsolvable problems, you see paths that can lead to answers and successful action. This is the tradition of great scholarship of which you are all a part. So today I ask of you to bring the tradition of scholarship to the challenges that lie ahead. And join me in thinking about the reality that together I believe our countries can create. An end to 60 years of conflict, violence and occupation, a homeland for Palestinians offering hope, respect, and a future, security and new acceptance for Israel within its neighborhood and around the world, and a strategic region that is able to turn to the future as peace takes hold, and a new partnership between your country and the Arab and Muslim peoples, transforming the strategic landscape and creating new horizons for progress and peace. It is an honor to be speaking to all of you today, and I thank you, Professor, for your very kind reception and welcome. And I should like to conclude by drawing from the wisdom of the great American after whom this school was named. Woodrow Wilson said, "Friendship is the only cement that will ever hold the world together. There must be not a balance of power, but a community of power. Not organized rivalries, but an organized peace." This is the challenge. And this is also the opportunity. And we must succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for those very insightful remarks. His Majesty has agreed to answer a few questions from students. I'd like to stress that they be in the form of a question. But if you would like to be recognized and would raise your hand, we can take a few. Yes.
Hi. My question is, with so little domestic and international legitimacy for President Bush, Prime Minister Olmert, and President Abbas right now, why do you think that this year, that now is the time for a lasting peace settlement? Thanks.
Well, because dynamics in our part of the world have changed. And if you can understand that today, although we keep saying that the core issue of the Middle East is the Israeli-Palestinian situation, there are other actors in the region. There are other challenges that we have to face. And I keep telling our Israeli and Palestinian colleagues that today it's not just the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Actually, it's bigger than Israel and the future of Palestine. Why do we need to move by the end of this year? Because for the first time, the moderates, I believe, have gained some ground in the Middle East. People, I think, out of human nature would always want to go for peace, stability, a bright future. There is a process that's in place now. The fear is that if it falls apart, then it's going to be the radical elements in the Middle East that are going to hold the higher ground. If we don't complete by the end of 2008, it'll be the end of the Bush administration. It's going to take at least 2 to 3 years until another American president is going to be even willing to take a look at the Middle East. What happens in those 2 or 3 years? Everything that I see leads to darker paths. So when I say that this is the last chance, because the dynamics is no longer the Israeli-Palestinian issue. It's much more challenging than that and much more dangerous.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming. I was just wondering, do you envision this as an American-led program speaking with both the Palestinian leadership and the Israeli leadership, or do you envision greater Jordanian involvement and by that extension by greater pan-Arab involvement?
Well, obviously, I would like to report that I believe that the chemistry between the Israeli and Palestinian leadership is a very positive one. They're being able to achieve a lot of the issues that are on the ground. But the reality of the situation, when it comes to final status issues, whatever they talk about together and whatever agreements that they come to, they won't be able to, by themselves, solve the problems or the final status issues 100%. You can say 85, 90, 95% because of the sensitivities of the final status issues. When they come to that obstacle, that wall, which will be either in several weeks or several months, but the reality of the situation is that obstacle is going to appear in the very near future. That is when the role of the international community, led by the United States, needs to be able to come in and help the Israelis and Palestinians be able to overcome those obstacles. And I think part of the discussions that we're having in Washington is to make sure that there's an understanding that there's going to be that wall, and to make sure that that is not used by excuse by anybody to let the peace process falter. We need to be ready for when those obstacles are reached. As for pan-Arab involvement, again, when I said 57 nations, you have an overwhelming support of Arab and Muslim nations to support the peace process. We are talking today that the future of Israel is no longer to the Jordan River or to the Golan Heights or to southern Lebanon or to the Sinai. What the Arab and Muslim countries are saying to Israel, look, we understand the difficulties of moving forward with a two-state solution, but your future is bigger than a two-state solution. What is being offered here is complete acceptance of Israel from Morocco on the Atlantic to eastern Indonesia in the South Pacific. That is what is being offered on the table, because we believe that if we are going to have proper peace, then it is the acceptance of Israel in the whole region. I think that's what the gamble is, and I think that is what is the value that's on the table. And so Israelis, when they look at the issue of a two-state solution, it is a two-state solution that actually then leads them to acceptance to 1/3 of the world that still does not have a relationship with Israel.
Yes.
Thank you for the comments. How do you envision, in terms of a final solution, a viable Palestinian state when today the Hamas is controlling the Gaza Strip? And if, let's assume, Israel withdraws from the West Bank, the Hamas can take probably over in a few days and will probably destabilize not only Israel, but your kingdom as well. So how do you envision kind of a final solution in terms of a Palestinian state?
Well, again, I think all polls that we have had in the recent past and even beyond that shows that the overwhelming majority of Israelis and Palestinians, 80 to 85% minimum, all want to solve the Israeli-Palestinian problem and all want to move forward. You have political elements out there that do not want to have it on both sides. And I believe that this is today the vote of the people. I think it's the people that have to stand up and say enough is enough. Again, it's basic humanity. I think you look at Palestinians, whether they're in the West Bank, whether they're in Gaza, whether they're anywhere else in the world, or you look at the Israelis. The future is, when I say 70% of our part of the world is under the age of 35, what they want is a bright future. They want jobs. They want to be able to have security. They want to be able to raise families. I think the difficulty is it's usually the politicians that mess it all up. And if I was to be able to tackle this, and I believe that the leadership from the Israeli-Palestinian side and the rest of us in the international community feel that when push comes to shove, it's going to be the Israeli and Palestinian people that are going to say, look, we've had it. We want peace, because the alternative is pretty frightening for all of us.
Thank you very much. This has been a terrific event. If I could ask for the audience to remain seated until His Majesty leaves the stage, that would be great. And if we could once again thank King Abdullah for his remarks.
Thank you very much.